Hello and welcome back to the Man's Kitchen. It's me, your host, James the Food Man. And today we're going to step into the world of baking and I'll show you what we're going to do right after this. And we're back from that intro. Now today we are going to bake up some bread, but not just any regular bread, we're going to make a babka. And the first time I ever heard of a babka, I was a little kid watching Seinfeld, and they spent the whole episode trying to get the last babka from this bakery so they could go to a shower. And by the end of it, I remember that was the episode where George had this crazy Gore-Tex coat. He knocked over a champagne display in the liquor store and had to buy it all. They show up at the end of the show, they toss the babka, they toss a bottle of wine, and they walk out all angry. And I've never really thought of a babka since then, till I was watching another video where they were making French toast and they used a babka for it. And I was like, oh yeah, that's the crazy Seinfeld bread. What is a babka? So I looked it up. I found a couple different babka recipes, and I found one that I'm going to link down in the description below that, out of all the ones I read, had most of the ingredients I didn't have to go out and buy. But no, out of all of them, it looked pretty good, so this is the one I chose, not just because I had almost everything. And we're going to show you how to make that. If you like today's video, though, I'm asking you to hit the like button, and if you like my channel, hit the subscribe button. And if you want to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, that way you can get behind-the-scenes content here from the Man's Kitchen. And I'm not going to mention this too often, I'm not going to mention this in every video, but if you would like to contribute to the channel on Patreon, there's a link down below in the description for that as well. Now let's move on to our ingredients. Okay guys, we have 3 sets of ingredients because there's 3 phases to making a babka. First, we have to make the bread. So we have flour, sugar, yeast, instant, 3 eggs, a half a cup of water, salt, butter, and some oil for greasing the pan. And again, all these ingredients will be linked in the actual recipe that we are borrowing. That will be down in the description below. For the chocolate filling, we've got powdered sugar, cocoa powder, butter, which will need to be melted, baker's chocolate. Now the actual recipe calls for chocolate chips, so we're just going to have to smash these up. We're going to have to cut them up with a knife or something. And dark chocolate, which it calls for to be melted. And finally, it calls for the babka to be brushed down with simple syrup at the end. So we have half a cup of sugar and half a cup of water. And again, all of these ingredients are in the actual recipe, and a link to that recipe will be in the description down below. Okay guys, so to keep my head from getting cut off, I'm sitting down, but not till after I grab this. And we are going to start with our mixer. And the recipe does say use a stand mixer, but I imagine you can use an egg beater if you don't have one. We're going to start out by adding all of our flour into the bowl with our sugar and our yeast. We're going to lock this into our mixer with a dough hook attachment. We're going to lock the head down because safety is always the #1 priority when working with anything that takes electricity or gas. We're going to put this on speed 1, which is stir, and we're just going to let that go for 10-20 seconds just to get everything mixed up as we start. Okay, now we're going to add our 3 eggs. and our water. We're going to increase speed to medium, and we're going to let this go for about 2 to 3 minutes. So the KitchenAid has speed 0 through 10. I'm going to go to speed 4. And I'll get back to you in 3 minutes. Okay, so I cut her short at 2 minutes. 3 minutes was just, it was basically formed, it was done. So we're going to add our salt. And we have our room temperature butter that's been sitting out for a while. I'm going to turn the mixer back on to 4. And I'm going to start dropping in a couple cubes of butter at a time. Threw one back at me. Okay, so we need to let this go for about 10 minutes until the dough is shiny and pulls away from the side of the bowl. What I'm going to do before I leave this for 10 minutes, I'm not really going to leave, but I'm going to leave for a few minutes and go do some dishes. So I'm just going to push everything down because it keeps coming up over the top of the dough hook. So I'm just going to give everything a good scrape off here. And so it did say medium. So I'm going to go to between maybe 6 this time. And we'll let her go for the next 10 minutes. Okay, so you can see that we have a nice shiny dough here. And what we're going to do with this, we're going to get it off the dough hook. And see how easily it just came off the dough hook? Dough hook is clean. Okay, I'm going to flip this out. See how clean the inside of the bowl is? We're going to divide this in 2, so yeah, that kind of looks, yeah, about there. Okay, and what we're going to do is, now the recipe says, because this makes two loaves, is in a lightly greased, so just put it in your baking pan lightly greased. I only have one baking pan, so when I make these, I'll have to do them one at a time, unless between now and when it rises, I go out and buy another pan. It's a possibility. It's not a possibility. Who knows? So I'll do the other dough in this bowl. And from what we're told, leave them in the fridge overnight, or at least 8 hours. So I'll get back to you in half a day. And we're back, everybody. It has been all day long. So we're going to take our melted butter. Actually, we're going to take our melted butter. We're going to take our powdered sugar and our cocoa powder. And our dark chocolate. Okay. And we are going to whisk this all together into a paste. Into a spreadable paste. Okay. Now again, this recipe makes 2 loaves, so half of this is going to go in the first loaf. Half of it will go in the second loaf. Okay. And if I have a clean spatula left, which which I don't know if I do because we've been doing a lot of cooking. Oh, I do. So we're going to use this to make sure we get every last little bit of chocolate out of here. Okay. Now the chocolate, the other chocolate I had earlier, the baker's chocolate, basically we just chopped it up. And that's going to be sprinkled in after. Okay. So I have a little bit of flour here, and we're going to put this down for benching. Okay. I'm going to grab one of our doughs. We're going to roll it out. And we want to make a rectangle. Remember that this has had 8 hours to rest in the refrigerator. So I pulled it out about 20 minutes ago or so in order for it to not be so stiff. Okay, so it looks like our rectangle is going to end up going this way. I have more of a square than a rectangle right now. Let's push some dough forwards. Okay. See if we can push some of that dough over here. Okay. It's more or less what we want. Okay. So now, I'm going to grab that spatula back. And from what I understand, I'm going to take what appears to be half of this. We're going to put it on. Okay. Now we're going to take half of our chocolate chips. And actually, you know what? I have in the cupboard some salted caramel chips I almost forgot about. We might as well throw these in. Okay. Now, we're going to roll this up like a roulade or a jelly roll. Okay. So now that that's done, we're going to grab a bread knife. And we're supposed to cut about 2 centimeters off. Okay, but this side over here, I didn't really do a little off, so we're going to go a little more than 2 centimeters. Okay, now we're going to cut it in half right down the center. Cut. Okay, now that it's cut, what we're supposed to do with this now is to braid it. So we're going to take one piece, and we're going to lay it right over. And now we're going to take another piece and go right over that. I guess we're going to do this piece. We're going to go right over that. We're going to push the ends together nice. And I'm going to grab some spray grease. And we're going to grease the inside of this pan. Okay, and actually, you know what? We're going to put some parchment paper inside, now that I'm thinking about it. Gonna take some scissors and cut that. So yeah, I took. There we go. Okay. Can I squeeze another? Yeah, right there at the end. Try and squeeze another braid in if you can. But so this is what we have. Okay. We have our braided bread. Try and keep it as even as you can in the center of our pan. Now this needs to rest somewhere for an hour and a half. Somewhere warm, so that way it can rise. The yeast now can activate. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to clean my hands up and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do coming up next. Okay, everyone, so what I did was I'm sitting it on this back burner here, and I'm taking a warm, damp towel, a clean one, and I'm just covering it up to keep it from drying out. And then what I like to do is turn on the back burner across the stove from it. So the area warms up nice without getting too hot. It's far enough away that the paper's not gonna catch on fire, it's not gonna cook, but if I keep this at a medium-high heat, I've found in the past that this works out well for having my dough rise. Now I'll get back to you in an hour and a half. We'll see how well it rose here, and then we're gonna bake it for half an hour. Okay, everybody, we've let our babkas rest. You can see the first babka that I showed you. This is the one that I made on camera. This is the one I made off camera. And I forgot to put the chocolate chips inside of it, so I just threw them on top. This one I also got a little tighter. We're going to throw both of these babkas in our preheated oven. I have it preheated to 375 degrees, and we're going to put these in for 25 to 30 minutes. We're going to check with a skewer. Also, this brings us to the last thing to cook. There's still more to do. And just so you guys know, I started these babkas at 9 o'clock this morning. It's 10:30 tonight. So my advice, get your dough ready, go to bed. Do the baking the next day. So last thing to do is to get our simple syrup. So we're going to take a little pot, half a cup of sugar, half a cup of water. We're going to put this on the stove. We're going to let that come to a boil. Once all the sugar dissolves, we're going to shut it off. And then we're going to brush the cakes down with that. And I'll show you that when they come out of the oven. Also, I told you that I was going to leave it over here. I actually had to move it over right next to the burner right next to the heat in order to get it warm enough to actually rise properly. So that was what I've done so far. I'll get back to you in about half an hour when the oven's finished. Okay guys, it's been about half an hour. Both my babkas are out of the oven. And now we're going to take our simple syrup and we're going to brush it on. And the directions specifically say use it all. Use all the syrup. It does not matter if your cakes look too wet. Use it all. So that's what we're going to do. Now I'm going to be honest with you, when I do this kind of stuff, I would prefer a hairbrush instead of a silicone brush, because those brushes tend to get more, looks like you want to just pour the syrup on, to be honest, when you're using a silicone brush. When you're using a brush with hair like a paintbrush, the bristles pick up more of the syrup. Okay, now the directions are to let this cool until it's warm, and then to dig in. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to come back to these in about, say, maybe 10-15 minutes. And then we're going to cut into our first ever babka. Alright, I was about to cut into this and then shove it into my mouth and tell you how awesome it was, but I thought, you deserve the right to see the first cut. Oh, and look at the side, because it wasn't attached, it just came right off. And look at that. You get a nice little pattern of swirliness in there. Alright, I want to pop the camera up so you can see my face, and we'll see how good this thing actually is. That's a very light bread. I'm surprised with the lightness in here, because it is a brioche, so that egg is supposed to add all kinds of extra richness. And now, I'm never really a fan of crust. Like, there's always something to be said about fresh, warm bread, but when there's chocolate in it, oh my god. This is to die for. Now, I might not be baking this every day. I might not even make this once a month. But this is definitely on my list of things to make again. What got me wanting to make it this time, I mentioned the Seinfeld story earlier, and that I had seen it again on a video. Well, it was a video from Epicurious, and it was their 4 levels of cooking, and their pro chef made French toast out of brioche, or not brioche, well, it is a brioche, but French toast out of babka. And I was like, so that's what a babka actually is. I think I could make that. And sure enough, I can. It just took all day. But it's well worth it. Now, from what I understand, I can wrap this up and it can stay on the counter 24 hours. Or you can freeze it 2 months. Now, if you like today's video, click the like button. If you like my channel, hit the subscribe button. And remember to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, so you can get brand new updates when I post brand new videos.